Hello, welcome back to another video in the Networker training series. In this video, we will be looking at jukeboxes and standalone tape drives. So tape devices may be configured as standalone devices or configured as part of the traditional tape library or the virtual tape library storage system. So Networker software supports many different types of tape drives, tape libraries. We also call them as autochangers, or within Networker, it is referred to as jukeboxes. The general category of libraries are SCSI, NDMPs, and silos. So in the first slide, we look at a simple block diagram of how a tape drive and tape library can be connected to Networker. In the diagram, you will see a Networker server with a 2-port HBA card, a SAN switch, a tape library with three tape drives, and a robotic arm, and a standalone tape drive. The tape drives can be connected to the backup server directly with the FC cable or can be connected via a SAN switch. If connected via the SAN switch, appropriate zoning configuration should be created so that only the backup server or the storage node is able to see the tape drives. Some operating systems provide the persistent binding option to permanently bind logical and physical addressing so that the associations are retained. So this guarantees that the operating system always uses and creates the same symbolic path for a device, and this is called as persistent naming. Persistent binding, however, guarantees that the operating system always uses the SCSI target ID for a SAN device, regardless of reboots or any other devices, by statically mapping a target's WWN address to the desired SCSI address. On some operating system, this is done by default, while on others, it has to be done manually. Proper configuration of the operating system to use persistent binding and persistent naming resolves issues related to device ordering by forcing the operating system to always assign the same device file name regardless of external events. Persistent binding and persistent naming usually help us to resolve the issue related to the drive reordering whenever a server is rebooted. So next, let's look at the daemons that support the tape library. So we've already seen all the daemons that are used in Networker in our previous trainings, but here is a quick recap of the daemons that are used to manage the tape library and the tape drive. The NSR MMGD manages tape library operations. It provides an RPC-based service that manages all Jukebox operations on behalf of the NSRD service. The NSRD service starts only one instance of the NSR MMGD on the Networker server as needed. The next daemon associated with the tape library and the tape drive or tape device is the NSR MMD. The NSR MMD provides device support, generates mount requests, multiplexes save set data during a multi-client backup, and demultiplexes recovered data. It writes the data sent by save to the storage node. It also forwards storage information to the NSR MMDBD process on the Networker server, which the Networker server adds to its media database. The next daemon of interest is the NSR LCPD. The NSR LCPD provides a uniform library interface to the Networker Media Management daemon, NSR MMGD. It manages the library subsystem, that is the media slots, drives, and port resources, providing control to move and access the resource within the library subsystems. One NSR LCPD is started for each configured tape library. Now that we have seen what daemons are used, let's quickly look at the different commands that we use during the configuration and troubleshooting of the tape library itself. So the commands on this slide are not used for day-to-day operations, but are useful when troubleshooting any jukebox related issues. So these commands interact directly with the tape library and help us to check if the issue is with the configuration in Networker or with the tape library itself. So the first command, inquire, The inquire command lists all the SCSI devices available on the OS. So when a drive is configured properly on the operating system with the correct drivers, it should return the serial number of the tape drive along with other inquire information. I generally run inquire without any switches, but I use the switch -n when I have to check the devices that are connected to an NDMP device or an NAS appliance. The next set of commands are the standard Jukebox interface commands and can be run against an SCSI compliant tape library. So these commands don't need the network service to be running, so it holds good for inquire as well. The first command, SCSIRD tag, takes the BTL address of the robotic arm as a parameter. So the BTL address can be got from the output of the inquire command. So this command reads the media presence and tag data from a jukebox and displays them on the terminal. This command also helps you to check if what you see on NetWorker is same as what is physically present on the tape drive or the tape library. The next command is sjisn, which also takes the BTL address as a parameter. It retrieves and displays tape drive serialization information from a SCSI compliant jukebox. This command is usually used to get the element address of a tape drive, which is required as a parameter to manually configure drives to a jukebox. This command is always helpful in checking if drive ordering has changed on the operating system in case of a reboot, wherever you do not have persistent binding and persistent naming configured. The next command is sjim, and it is used to move media around the jukebox. So those were the ones which we did not use every day, but this set of commands are used to interact with the tape library and the tape drives from within the networker, which means that these commands need the networker services to be up and running to work. The commands that you see on the screen also need you to have the configure networker privilege. So the first command in the list is JBConfig. It is an interactive program for configuring a jukebox in networker. We will see more of this during our demo session. So the JB edit is used to add or remove a drive associated to a tape library. So this operations is much easier using the NMC, as you don't have to find all the information required to be provided with the command to complete the operation. But there will be scenarios where the operation will not be possible using the NMC, and thus knowing how to use this command is going to be very helpful. Alright, so let's get into the lab to see whatever we looked at in the slides. The lab that I'm using is on GCP. For the tape drive, I'm using an open source virtual tape library called MHVTL. Link to the details on how to install and use this VTL is in the description. Alright, getting into the demo. Had a bit of a glitch with the MHVTL. Now it's fixed. And I have the MHVTL installed on my networker server and the storage node. MHVTL is supported only on Linux, so you cannot install it on Windows. So let's take a look at the first command, which is inquire. So inquire is going to be, so you got to run it as sudo. It is going to list all the SCSI attached devices. So you can see the summary at the end of the command here. It says there are 2 disks, which it is. If I run lsplk, you will see that I have 2 disks, SDA A and SDB. And I have 2 autochangers and 8 tapes, so altogether 12 devices. So I have 2 autochangers on my backup server, and if I look at the storage node, I have a similar configuration there as well. So before I go ahead and start configuring the device, let's look at one of the sjird tag commands. So what I will do is I need the BTL address for this. So I will grep the name for auto changes. So the two auto changes are here. So this is the BTL address for for so this is the BTL for autochanger 1, this is the BTL for autochanger 2. So you'll see that the BTL created is of type L700 and L80. Alright, so let's look at sjird tag, and I will supply one of the BTL addresses. So let me take this as an example, and it is going to return the tag and the device information. So the first tag is for data transport, and this set of devices are the tape drives. The element type storage are the slots, and you will see a volume tag within that storage element type as well, which is the tapes. So these are all the tapes. This is the tape barcode, and you will see all these tapes. So, and this is the media transport, which is the IO of your tape library. So these are all the devices that you can see. So there can be scenarios wherein there might be a tape stuck in your tape library, but when you tell your on-site tape library handler to eject that tape, he might tell that the tape is not in the drive. So to make sure that it is not physically on the drive, and to avoid wasting time contacting your on-site, you can directly go and run the sjird tag to get this information and compare it with the information that you have in your NetWorker server. Okay, so before going into the NMC, let's go ahead and try to configure a tape library from the command prompt, right? So if you remember, the command to configure the tape library from the CLI was JBConfig, and this is the wizard for creating the tape library through the command prompt. So the type of jukebox that we have is an auto-detected SCSI jukebox. So it will be the option 1, enter. So now it has gone and detected that there are two tape drives or two tape libraries on this particular server, and it wants you to select which tape library you want to configure. So let's go with the second one, which is STK L80. Let's give it a name. Let's call it JB1. And then it is asking if I want to enable auto cleaning. This is a VTL. Auto cleaning does not apply to me, but physically, if you're configuring a physical tape library, go ahead and enable that. Now it is giving me a summary of what drives it has detected for this particular tape library. So there are 4 drives, and these are the drive information. They are auto configurable, so we can auto configure it, but if you want to configure it manually using JBedit, you can do that as well, but we'll always take the easier route. So let's configure it with auto configure. We say do not bypass, which is no, and it is done. So it's asking if we want to configure another one, and we say no. Alright, now that we have configured the tape library on the NetWorker server, which is connected locally to it, let's configure one for a storage node. For this, we have to log into the storage node and run the command as so. So it's going to ask for your backup server name, which is LNW1. And then it is going to ask you what host name is to be prefixed to the jukebox. So this is the host name, which is very long. So what we'll do is we'll just reduce it to just a short name, and it is LSN1. Say OK. Next, the wizard is going to be similar to what we saw when we configured the jukebox on the networker server. So option number 1 for auto detect is SCSI jukebox. Then it is going to scan and say what name I want to give. Let me say JB2. And it wants to know whether we want auto cleaning. We say no. And then it has detected all the drives and it is telling if you want to skip auto configure, which is a no. And that's done. So we have both the jukeboxes configured. Now let's get to the NMC and take a look at them. Before that, let me just quickly create a pool, a couple of pool. I'll pause the video for a few minutes. Alright, so I've created these new pools, backup 1, backup 2 and clone. We will configure 2 of the pools on the local jukebox and the clone one on the jukebox connected to the storage node. So if we jump to the libraries, you will see the 2 jukeboxes that we had created. So one is JB1 and the other is the remote, which has a prefix of the host name of the storage node and the jukebox name. There are 4 drives on the jukebox, no cleaning slot. This is the control port. Make a note of the control port as well, because sometimes during reboot this control port might change, which will result in your tape library not coming into a ready state. Now these 2 systems are in a ready state, or these 2 tape drives are in a ready state. So if we go back to our respective owning hosts and look for NSR LCPD, you will see one NSR LCPD running for the backup server and another one running for the storage node. So now let's go ahead and delete these jukeboxes and configure them again using the NMC. Always make sure that when you delete any device from the any jukebox, it'll always have the devices left back and you have to delete them individually. So we delete the devices as well. Alright, so these are the AFTD devices. So configuring the tape library is pretty simple. On the NMC, just right click and say configure all tape libraries. Select next, select whichever storage nodes you wanted to create the tape libraries on and click on start configure. Click on finish. You should see the tape library created in a few minutes. Alright, so if we go back and refresh our view, we'll see that we have the 2 tape libraries for the storage node created. So let's configure one for the backup server as well. There seems to be one problem because of which I'm deleting this. This is simply because I'm using the MHVTL, and the device that I have created on MHVTL, it all shares the same hardware ID, and that is why it's not allowing me to create another storage node on the backup server. So I'll delete one of the tape libraries and configure all tape library and just select the backup server and configure and finish. So now we should be able to see the new tape library created. Yeah, perfect. Now let's go ahead and look at what is there within the tape drive. So the tape library. So the tape library itself has around a lot of drives. So again, as I told you, this is the same tape library that is shared between the two servers. So that is why you see the 8 drives here, 4 belonging to the networker server and 4 belonging to the storage node. To label the tape, just select the tape and then right click and say label. You will be asked for which volume you want to, which pool you want to label it to. So let's go and since this is local one, I'll label it to backup 1. Okay. And let me select 3 more and tell it to label it to the backup 2. So as you see, the labeling operation has begun, which was the first one. The second one has also begun. So let's go on the second tape library and label that one to clone 1 pool. So it should complete. So as you can see here, it has already labeled these 3 to backup 1 and this one to backup 2. Just keep in mind that the VTL that we are using is an MHVTL which is configured on your backup server itself, and it is using the folder opt MHVTL to store whatever data you will be sending across to these systems. So be careful, you might fill up your file system. So best to keep the MHVTL in a separate mount point. Now that the labeling is almost completed, let's go ahead and trigger a quick backup. Let's see which one. Okay, I think we can use the server protection. Let me change the pool. Let's go here to server protection. Don't worry, we have a whole other sections regarding the pool, regarding the policy creation, workflow creation, action creation, and all the good stuff, the different kind of protection groups that are available and all that things. So I'm gonna keep it to backup 1 and I'll say next, next, and configure. So let's go ahead and start. I think this one. Nope. This one. And say yes. And let's see what's happening on this side when the backup starts. So you'll see that it is requesting for volume. You see the volume alert on the left hand side here. And you will see an operation for mount, which is this. So volume is getting mounted. And as soon as the mount completes, the alert is going to go away. So that is done. Yep, and now the backup has begun. If I switch back to monitoring, and it has failed. Let's see why. Details. Oh, it has completed, but it has failed for. Oh, okay, storage node. I don't have an NMC on the storage node, so looks good. So now that we have configured a jukebox using the CLI, using the NMC, we have seen how to label a tape. Let's go ahead and mount a tape using SCSI command and see how it looks like on the tape library. So for that, let me go back to my NMC, the CLI, and I'm going to run the inquire here, quickly jogging back to see which jukebox is configured on the 100. So 100. First I run SJI RD tag 100 to see where all the devices are. You got to run it as sudo. Then I'm going to run SJIMM for 100, and the source is going to be a slot, or let's say slot 30, and the destination is going to be a drive. Let's see which drive is empty. Let's say drive 1 001. Again, run it as sudo. Okay, looks like it is complete. So let's take a look at the SJRD tag again to confirm. And yes, it is completed. But if you switch back here, you will see that there is nothing on the first drive. So according to this, you have two tapes. One is on 100, which is on drive 2, which is of barcode 1002, and the other one is 1030. This is because SJI, as I told you, does not use the networker services, and that is why networker is not aware that that particular tape drive is mounted. So the best way to sync both these is to right click on the tape library and then click on reset and then say yes. Keep in mind, do not reset the tape library when a backup is running, because it will eject all the tape that is mounted on the drives. So waiting for the inventory to complete, and you will see that there is a unlabeled tape in the drive, which is now gone because everything is ejected. To confirm, I can show it to you here again. So all the tapes are now ejected. So this was all about jukeboxes and configuring jukeboxes in NetWorker. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of this video. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions or comments, share it with our community in the comment section below, or you can drop me a message at my Twitter account. I will see you on another video. Goodbye.